Welcome to the Asset Management Mastery Podcast. Your hosts, Gary Lipsky and Kyle Mitchell, have more than 50 years of combined experience in operations and management and more than 25 years of real estate investing experience. This show focuses on educating syndicators and apartment owners on how to build systems and manage their properties more efficiently to become a best-in-class operator. 100% straight talk. Let's jump in.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Asset Management Mastery Podcast. I'm your co-host Kyle Mitchell, also joined by Gary Lipsky. This podcast is focused on educating operators, building better systems, and becoming a best-in-class operator. Also be sure to check out our Facebook page, Asset Management Mastery. All right, today on the show we have Brock Mogensen. How you doing, Brock?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here. If you can start by telling the listeners a little bit more about yourself and what you currently do.
Yeah, so I'm in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. Got into the whole syndicating deals thing a few years ago. Done about 6 of them so far, and it's been a good time.
Thanks for joining us today, and I appreciate you coming on and talk openly about your first deal. I understand you made some mistakes along the way, which we all do, but you overcame them. Why don't we start from the very beginning? I know. Let's talk about due diligence.
Yeah, so the one that comes to mind on that topic is it was our first syndication we were doing, and on due diligence, it was, we're going through the checklist, the financials, and everything you see, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and one thing I think, looking back on it, it should have been more of an obvious one, but we should have really spent more time going on site, talking to tenants specifically. So I think a lot of times, and I could see this particularly taking case if it was, out of state investing, the time on site might not be there, right? So I think as you're going through due diligence, looking back on it, if we could have gone in and spoke to each tenant, maybe not each tenant, but kind of got an idea of what the tenant base was currently there, what are the problems surrounding it, and going into it, we knew we were going into this property with some evictions that were going to take place, but didn't have a good scope of it. Ultimately ended up being, evicting 50% of the tenant base. That could have possibly been avoided if we would have gone out there and kind of talked to some surrounding properties a little bit more than we did.
And did you hire a company to help you with the due diligence, or you guys did it all yourself?
We did all due diligence ourselves. So on that one, I mean, definitely, I think everyone, if anyone tells you they didn't make a mistake on their first deal, I think they might be lying a little bit, because especially in these bigger deals. So just being honest with that one, I mean, yeah, it was something now. I mean, always every time we go through due diligence, we kind of think of some stuff that could possibly be added, and always refining our list of topics to go through, and it's just an extensive process.
And going through all those evictions, like how are we able to overcome that? I mean, 50% evictions, that's a lot. And how long of a process did it take to get through all of that?
Yes, that it was about over about a year-long period. I'd say that we evicted those tenants, right? So it took a little bit of time, and obviously, tying right into that will be another kind of learning lesson. Obviously going into it, we had an idea of the problems that were going on there. Like I said, not as much as we had initially thought, but it ultimately led to a lot of evictions, right? And evictions mean unit turn costs. We didn't necessarily have that in the budget, so we went over what the capital we had raised. So another learning lesson was obviously raise more capital for those unexpected things. We were kind of just assuming everything was going to go to plan. Now, we're raising 6 months worth of all expenses just in an operating reserves account just in case. Ultimately ended up being, we went over our capital allocations and had to pull out some line of credits. Since then, the past year we've turned it around, and it's now gone from the problem property on the Brock to the best one. So it definitely turned around a lot now, which is great to see. But in the middle of the trench at the time, it was definitely it was sweaty.
Yeah, it's much easier to talk about it now versus when you're going through it. I'm sure I mean the stress and whatnot, but that kudos to you and your team to overcome that. Let's delve a little bit into that undercapitalization, and you mentioned you took out credit lines. So you didn't do a capital call. You and your team did it all on yourself.
Correct. Yeah, we didn't want to do a capital call. We tried to avoid it at all costs. We went and essentially pull out a line of credit on the management side, and we just put it under our name and under the LLC's name, but essentially under us, and took the responsibility on it. I mean, it was our mistake, so we want to take responsibility for it.
And how much money money did you pull for that line of credit?
That ended up being about $100,000.
100 grand. Okay. And
Yeah.
How big of a property and where was it located?
That one was 89 units, C class, in the city of Milwaukee.
Okay. All right. So in your home, the home state, it was fairly close to you.
Yep. Yeah, it's right where we live. So yep.
All right. Great. Any other lessons learned from that first deal that you would recommend someone that hasn't done a deal before that they should know?
I would say kind of bigger picture is, I think a lot of the educational courses out there and everything you read about in the books when you're first starting out to try to learn about these bigger deals talks about finding deals, analyzing deals, raising money for deals, which are all important things. But no one really, I think there's more people like yourselves coming out and kind of talking about this thing of asset management. When you kind of get into it, it's something you kind of just throw on the back burner, like, oh, you got the property manager that takes care of that. I might have to get on some calls every once in a while with them. But really, I think if people should put focus on learning that before they really get into it. Because to me, I've learned that asset management is really what makes the returns. I mean, you can model everything out in a spreadsheet and do everything up front. But it really comes down to, dialing in the operations and maximizing returns. And that's what asset management is. So looking back at it, I mean, if I could have spent more time learning what I know now going into that first deal, I mean, I think it would have gone a lot more smooth.
Yeah. I mean, did you have, a prior experience? Because you guys solve problems, I'm pretty impressed on how you were able to come through that. Did you have different like business experience, or what was your experience before that for you to come up with solutions pretty quickly?
Yeah, so the people I partner with, one of the partners has quite a bit of experience in property management, owns his own property management company. So we were able to kind of plug in the people we needed to, extra staff it and kind of absorb some of the costs through that. That helped a lot for sure. I don't know necessarily if we could have gotten through it that quickly without that. So kind of, leaning on my partner definitely helped a lot with that one.
So yeah, obviously real estate is a team sport, and having partners really helps, particularly in stressful situations too, to be able to lean on someone. So very nice. I'm going to pass it on to Kyle to bring us home.
All right, Brock, what is your asset management superpower?
For me, I'd say it's figuring out ways to track and analyze data is really what I've found too. I come from an analytical background naturally, so it's kind of a right fit there. And really what I mean by that is finding ways to pull data and track it. So what we've done with that is I've developed my own, template for analyzing every KPI I think is important to look at on a weekly basis. Hired a virtual assistant that goes into our property management software, which is AppFolio, pulls data every week, puts it into a nice, dashboard looking report, sends it out to our team every week. I can look at that report each week and make decisions based on, a 5-minute overview of the report. So stuff like that, where, the best decisions are made off data. So just kind of staying true to that is what I found to be my superpower there.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Gary and I could not live without our KPI dashboards. And if you do not have a KPI dashboard or track KPIs and you're a business owner in general, I highly suggest that, because like I said, Gary and I couldn't do what we do and ask the right questions without that dashboard. So great. If you can tell people where they can find out more about you before we wrap up. Yeah,
so I can be reached directly through website, which is www.smartassetcapital.com. There's a contact form on there. I also have the report I was just talking about, the KPI report. I can download that for free off the website. Also, I'm trying to stay pretty active on Instagram. My handle is just at Brock Mogensen there. So you can reach me through there or the website.
Awesome. Well, Brock, thanks for being on. To all of our listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please head over to iTunes and Stitcher, give us a like, subscribe, and review so we can continue to grow the audience, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and written review to help us grow and reach more listeners. You can also go to the Asset Management Mastery group on Facebook so you can reach Kyle and Gary and ask your questions that you want them to answer on the show. Subscribe too so you can get the latest episodes. Lastly, to stay updated, go to assetmanagementmastery.com and sign up for the newsletter. If you're interested in partnering with Gary and Kyle, sign up on the contact page so you can talk to them directly. Thanks again for joining us. Be sure to tune in again next week for another episode.